Knowing our real racial history in America is the key to understanding the social issues that we face today. And when it comes to racial history in America, the details count. So today I'm going to talk to you about some history that was whitewashed from your textbooks and that most Americans don't know about. Some of them are kind of brutal. The first one is about a book that was published each year from 1936 until the late 60s. Its official name's a little antiquated. It's called the Negro Motorist Green Book. Now, white folks may not know much about this, but let me explain. The Green Book, as it was often called, was this book that black motorists, if they owned a car or drove a car, would need to use when going pretty much anywhere out of the neighborhood. It gave the safe locations of places to travel, eat, get gas, and find lodging. It pretty much did it for all over the United States. For black Americans, driving out of the redlined neighborhoods, which most were forced to live in, could mean life or death. It's very dangerous. During the Jim Crow era, when discrimination was legal, African Americans faced a variety of dangers when they traveled by car, even just a short trip. It could be anything from threats of murder to just simply cruel, embarrassing, humiliating treatment along the road. Black people could face anything from refusal of food and lodging, arbitrary arrests, brutality, and murder by citizens or police. White-owned businesses could refuse to serve them or refuse to repair their vehicle if they were broken down. They could refuse accommodations or food or hotels. They could threaten physical violence. And then there were the sundown towns. There were thousands of them across the United States. If you don't know what sundown towns were, they were, in short, places where the white people who lived there did not want black people there after dark and could not guarantee their safety after dark. The next hidden history that I'm going to talk about is called the Compromise of 1877, which took place just after the Civil War. This secret compromise occurred just a little bit after the Civil War, like 12 years maybe, and it was incredibly significant. It was meant to be a solution to settling a dispute about who won the presidential election in 1876. But the compromise was this undocumented deal that was struck between Democrats and Republicans behind closed doors, and it was never sorted out or debated through the U.S. Congress. The compromise said that Rutherford B. Hayes would be the next president, but that the deal would only stand if certain conditions were met. Some of the conditions that were necessary turned out to be catastrophic for the human rights of black people. Here's one of the conditions. This compromise said that federal troops would need to be removed from the states in the South that were formerly Confederate states. The damage that the Compromise of 1877 caused to black people was astronomical. In a book called Slavery by Another Name, it was written by Douglas Blackman. It challenges one of America's cherished assumptions, which is an absolute lie. It's the belief that slavery in America ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. It's a lie. The Compromise of 1877 marked the end of Reconstruction. It was over, and it opened the doors for some of the most inhumane and barbaric discriminatory policies against black people. One part of hidden history that most people don't know is that during Reconstruction, over 2,000 African American people held public office, from the local level all the way up to the U.S. Senate. They were taking part in American society. Once the military pulled out the troops in the South, there was no one there to help protect the human rights of free people who were formerly enslaved. No one was there to guarantee their rights. And after the troops left, the southern states imposed Jim Crow and black codes, which essentially made it illegal for a black person to participate in American life. The Compromise of 1877 pushed back efforts for equality and for dignity of black people all the way until 1964. And right now, we're experiencing the second tier of the civil rights movement. It's time for our black sisters and brothers to have real equity in America, and a chance to accumulate wealth and feel safe in their own country. It is way past time to deconstruct the systems of racism this nation was founded on. We get an end to systemic racism in all areas and reparations that were stolen to be paid. We owe the American descendants of former slaves reparations for what we did. The third hidden history I'm going to talk about are Southern Confederate monuments. Do you ever wonder how we got so many Civil War monuments honoring these traitors who basically seceded from the Union so that they could to fight to keep human beings as their slaves? Kind of a strange thing. Some people claim it's about preserving history. They couldn't be more wrong. Unless they're actually referring to the barbaric racist history that no white people seem to want to acknowledge. Let me tell you what happened. Here's the truth, and it is not pretty. Most of the Confederate monuments that were put up around the United States, they weren't put up after the Civil War, but instead they were built from the 1890s to 1950s, which matches precisely when the Jim Crow era of segregation and black codes were happening. In fact, this is insane. In 1956, Georgia redesigned, this is 1956, redesigned their flag to include a Confederate flag. And in 1962, South Carolina placed that flag atop its Capitol building. These Confederate monuments and flags were put up for one purpose, and that was to intimidate and serve as a reminder that we live in a society and culture of white supremacy, and it is alive and thriving. A surge of statues also happened to take place again during the time of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964. Big coincidence? I think not. Glorifying the Confederate flag was basically a way for people to speak using symbols to black people who didn't want more than everybody else had, just a chance at equity. The Confederacy, its symbols and its flags were about one thing and one thing only, and that's pure hatred. If you don't believe me, just listen to the Cornerstone speech, written and spoken by Alexander Stephens, the Vice President of the Confederacy. It is one of the nastiest speeches, I suppose, I have ever heard in my life. If you want your information about racial history served with a side order of truth and integrity, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's called Angry Soccer Mom. I do live shows at 9 p.m. every Wednesday, and I'd love you to participate. So don't be a stranger. Tell me what you think of these three hidden history topics. I'm going to keep doing a few more. I have about 20 more things to add, so let me know what you think.